You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast, your guide to living a more purposeful life. Welcome, everybody, to episode 183 of the On Purpose Podcast. This week, I'm excited to have someone that helped make me better and challenge me to think differently and outside the box. But before we get to that, I want to remind you all to like, share, subscribe, to pay your debts to this podcast. You know, we don't ask for much, but we love to continue to grow our On Purpose community. And if you're really feeling up to it, join us at patreon.com/the On Purpose podcast, or you can financially contribute to the management, leadership, and development of this program, because as I always tell you, I don't want to be the biggest podcast in the world, but I definitely want to be one of the most impactful. And quite honestly, sometimes it takes money to do that. So join us at patreon.com/the On Purpose podcast. This week's guest is a good friend of mine. When I was a police officer and I went to work, I went from the streets to one of the biggest high schools in Colorado, Rocky Mountain High School. I needed to change my attitude. I needed to change my outlook on things. It was a great place for me to kind of reset and see the world from a different lens. And this week's guest is Karen Bennett. She was one of the assistant principals there with me and somebody I got to eat lunch with almost every day. And I really loved hearing her advocate for the underdog teacher, the underdog student, the troubled kid that would be easy to push aside. I loved hearing her advocate for bringing those people into the fold and giving more to them and contributing more to them to help them see who they could become. So please, On Purpose podcast community, give a big welcome to Karen Bennett. Hello, everybody. Karen, how are you? What is that beeping in the background, Karen?
I have like my chat. I'm trying to figure out how to turn it off. I don't know how to turn it off.
Oh, that's good. That's always awesome to start a podcast with technical issues. That's honestly about how 90% of them go, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I knew how to turn it off and it is not turning off. So
that's all right. We'll work around it. Karen, thank you so much for joining our show this week. And I'm excited to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. It's so good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been a while, huh?
It has been a while. Yeah.
Let's see. Things are changing. You're getting ready to retire from a life of serving in high schools, although I have no doubt you'll be busier in retirement probably than you were a lot of days.
Yeah, I think I started to put a few things in place, but I don't know. I don't know what the next phase will bring. I'm just excited that I have a next phase.
Absolutely. I think that's huge. So many people don't know what the next phase is, and they kind of get lost trying to figure out what it is. And sometimes you just got to go. Like, honestly, if back when I was working with you at Rocky, if you'd have told me in 10 years you'd be living out of an Airstream traveling the country, I'd have probably thought you were crazy. And look where we are.
I know. I'm so jealous of you. It just feels like it's so carefree and just you get to make some great choices all the time.
Well, I get to also make some very dumb choices. I've done some very dumb things out here too, like towing my vehicle where it shouldn't be towed and causing damage. But yes, for the most part, it's pretty good. Matter of fact, I'll share a quick story. The other day we had some friends show up and I didn't know what day it was. I was like, hey, it was raining and cold. I was like, let's go into town and, we'll watch some college football and have a beer. And he's like, dude, it's Friday. And that's literally like the third time in 2 days you've gotten the day wrong. And I was like, I honestly don't know what day it is a lot.
Yeah, you have to get a calendar and put it up and mark it off or something.
No, I don't want to know. It's more fun.
Okay.
I have no idea what day it is. As long as I show up for the few appointments I have, that's good.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
But Karen, before we get into sharing your story, which I'm super excited for, we always do a little warm up here on the On Purpose podcast, kind of like, you're training for a marathon. I can't just throw you out at 26.2 miles and expect it to go well. We got to build you up to that. So we're going to have a series of warm up questions here and not too much thought. But the first one is, you're stranded on a deserted island. You get one food for the rest of your life. What are you going to be eating?
Oh, chips and salsa. Can I have
Oh,
two? That's
yeah.
kind of two, but it's kind of one actually when you put it together.
Oh yeah, chips and salsa is for sure one food. No, no,
Yeah.
like chicken in your chip, like just straight chips and salsa.
Oh, just straight chips and salsa.
You got a favorite salsa brand or?
This is gonna seem silly, but I really like Chili's chips and salsa. I don't know why, but it's just I think because they bring out this huge bowl of chips and their salsa is just it's nothing like particularly special, it just is good. I don't know.
All right.
And yeah, you just fill up on chips and salsa and margaritas. I mean, nothing's
Yeah,
better than that. Yeah.
that's a good way to, that's not a bad time on the island. All right, you have one
Yeah.
superpower. It can be
Mm.
whatever you want. What is your superpower and why do you want it?
Okay, so this one is hard for me. I was listening to your other podcast, trying to prepare for this and trying to find the right answer. And really isn't a right answer, but I think my superpower would be the power to cure addiction. And just because it just ruins so many lives. And I just would want people to be free from that. And so, I mean, I know that's kind of a deep answer, but
I
I
love it.
really think the power to cure people of addiction would be my superpower.
For sure. And I think both, you and I had a very open and honest relationship back when we worked together, and both of
Yeah.
us had family members that were going through that at the time.
Yep. Mhm.
That's a fantastic power. All right, what are you currently reading and what is your go-to book if you have to reread something?
Yeah, so I'm currently reading The Power of One More by Ed Milet. And I just started it. So with school starting, it's hard to get it some time to read, but I just started that. My go-to book for fun, I don't know if it's fun, but I absolutely loved Silence of the Lambs. It was like one of my favorite all-time books, and it's dark and it's deep, but it was so well written that anytime I pick it up, I reread it, and it's just you can just feel everything that they're going through in that entire book. So that's like it's my favorite book of all time. I don't always read it a lot just because it is
Sure.
so dark, but I loved Silence of the Lambs.
And is the book as creepy as the movie? Because I've never read it, but the
Oh,
movie scares me.
totally. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I actually read that when I was a junior in high school over the summer. I got the book and I was in the NCO club. I was cleaning that morning. That was one of my jobs. I was a cleaner, which is the most disgusting job ever, is clean up after a bunch of NCOs. But but we used to, on our breaks, I would sit and read, and I read that book in like one day. It was just so good.
I love it. All right, now
Mhm.
final warm-up question for you, Karen. If you can
Yeah,
have dinner with one person, who would it be and what would you want to ask them?
it would be my dad for sure. My dad passed away when he was 53. He had cancer, and there was just a lot of questions as you get older and you're a parent and your kids get older that you just kind of want to know like how they handled that situation or just their stories and life just gets so busy when you're younger you don't ask those questions, but as you get older you just want to know like what were you like in high school and what when we were kids and my kids are this age, like what did you think about that, and when we did that, like we didn't get in trouble for that, why not, and just different things like that.
I love it. What do you think is the importance of being able to have those conversations? What do you think we gain from that?
I think you gain closure on relationships sometimes. I don't think my dad's cancer was very quick, so it was a 6-month process. I was pregnant with my daughter Maddie at the time, so I couldn't go back to Pennsylvania and see him
Okay.
like I wanted to at the end. And so for me, that conversation would be to put closure in just to be able to learn more about him. My dad was a very quiet man, and didn't tell a lot of his stories. He just showed up and did his job and left, kind of thing. And so I know there was more in there. So I just think to be able to have that conversation with him and learn more about him, and then be able to put closure on our relationship, and have been able to say goodbye on our terms would have been better.
And that is so interesting you're saying that, Karen, because I was literally, as I was working to prepare for this one, writing out another episode, what I call generational healing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally just about those very conversations.
Yeah. Well,
And,
I sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, you're good.
From learning from that, though, what I did was during COVID, I interviewed my mom, and we did a podcast kind of like this. Not really a podcast. I interviewed her through Zoom and did a video and asked her questions that I wanted to know from her, because I thought, well, gosh, I don't want this to happen with her, and I want to know her stories. And so I sent her the list of questions that I was going to ask her, and then we made a time and she got on and I interviewed her, and then I saved the video. And so now I have that forever to be able to share. And it was probably one of the best things I've ever done.
Oh, that is a fantastic. What was one, congratulations for having the courage to do it. Because I think a lot of times there's stuff we want to know that we just leave unsaid. And then, like your father, they pass, and you can never find out the answers. And
Yeah.
two, what was the biggest thing you learned from that interview?
I think the biggest thing I learned, my mom was always so strong. And I mean, she's British. And so she moved to the States when she was 19 years old, had a baby, was married to my dad. He was in the Air Force. And so she moved from England to Texas, which is a huge cultural shock. And so I just always admired how strong my mom was. And I never really understood or realized how much she missed her family back in England, and just really how vulnerable she really was, and how sad she was at times. But then also like how proud she is of who she is, and how hard she's worked. My mom's always worked full time.
Right.
And just what an amazing role model she was for my sister.
Where's she at now?
She's in Pennsylvania.
Okay. She never went back home?
She didn't. She and my dad tried to retire in England, and it just was super expensive. And plus all of us, all the kids were back in the US.
Right.
So they moved back, and she stayed because that's where we are.
Oh, wow. Now, was there anything that you learned, like you had a recollection or a perspective on an event and your mom's was completely different?
I don't think so. I mean, not through that interview. I mean, there are definitely times like when I was in high school, I didn't feel like I was a good student. I worked hard. I did what I was supposed to do. But I never felt like it was super hard for me as a student. And my mom's perception of me was I had to work so hard because the work was so hard, and that I struggled. And I was like, I don't feel like that was it, but maybe on the outside, that perception was different. Sure. But no, I don't, there wasn't anything that was like, oh gosh, we totally viewed that differently.
Right. But I think that's the value of that conversation, is you can both now agree that you saw things similarly.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so many people, and that's one of the things we've been trying to do is, my youngest is 19 now, which is basically an adult. So we've been sitting down when the time's right with each of them saying, hey, let's talk about anything that you're carrying with you that you feel mom and dad put on your shoulders, whether some way I unintentionally hurt you or so you can hear what I was thinking and I can know what you're thinking, so that we can move past this, because I'm just sometimes I'm amazed at people in their 50s, 60s, 70s that are still carrying with them childhood trauma or childhood scarring
Right.
that could simply have
Yeah.
been a misunderstanding or a difference of opinion, or nobody ever got a chance to,
Yeah.
hey, you know what? I messed up and I'm really sorry for that.
Oh my gosh, I love that you're doing that. That just gives me a great idea.
Yeah, I think, but it's literally what you just did with your
Yes.
mom, but now you could flip
Yeah.
it and do it with your kids so that we don't have
Yep.
them going 30 or 40 years
Yeah.
wondering
Yep.
why we did this or whatnot. But I
Yeah.
love it,
Right.
Karen. And honestly, that's every time I get to talk about you or share stories about my time at Rocky, like you're always in it. And it was simply that, like you always, to me, I loved being around you because you always seem to bring out the best in people and you always allowed them to see who they could be, not necessarily what they were at that moment or what other people were telling them they would be limited to.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I try.
And how did that come about? How did that almost that underdog mentality that you not only carry, but that you bring out in other people, how did that come to be for you?
I think a lot of that underdog mentality came from growing up in the Air Force. My dad was an NCO, and a lot of my friends were officer kids, and I just never felt like I was on their level, even though I was. And I always felt like, I mean, the military definitely has divisions when it comes to like ranking and your seniority and in how different people are treated and stuff like that. And I just always was like, that just isn't right to me because we're all humans and we're all working hard. And just because your dad has this commission and my dad has this commission doesn't mean that you're better than me. And so I just always, I don't know, chip on my shoulder, I guess. I don't know. I just always felt like I needed to advocate for the underdog. I needed to advocate for people whose path was just different. It wasn't because they were less than or did less than. It just was they just had a different path. And so the way they worked and the way they had to gain success in their life or whatever it is just was a different path. And it didn't mean that they were less than by any means.
And was there a particular moment that stands out to you as a kid that you're like, okay, I knew right here, right here, right now, I had to make a stand for myself?
Probably really like fifth grade.
Yeah.
There was a girl who was just like brutal and just really mean to all of us. And her dad was a colonel. And my friends and I, our dads were just sergeants. Um, and she just was always super mean and would like say things like, well, you don't know, you're not smart enough because your dad's only a sergeant. And it was like, that doesn't matter. Like, that really doesn't matter. So, I mean, one day I was not very nice to her and I ended up getting in trouble, but that's when I was like, you know what? Like, you don't get to talk to me that way and you don't get to talk to my friends that way. That just doesn't sit well with me.
I love it. And for those of you listening that aren't maybe familiar with what it's like to grow up as a military kid, I too grew up on base housing, and my dad was a career Air Force enlisted folks. So it's interesting, right? Your parents sign up for the military and they get
Mm,
certain ranks, whether they went to college or didn't go to college, education level. And you're right, Karen. It's almost like the families get assigned the same rank,
yep.
even though we
Mm,
didn't volunteer for it. And I didn't choose to live there.
right. Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And you're right,
Exactly.
there is a pecking order and a culture there. But I would just say, don't like even where you're at now, there's sort of something similar, maybe not as formal for the kids, but if a kid comes to the school and his dad is, say, the mayor or the governor or some high affluent person, it's easy for them to look down upon somebody whose family makes their living through lesser means.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's societal, right? And so for me, it's really, we at the school I work at, Rocky Mountain High School, we talk a lot about emotional intelligence versus like intelligence, And we talk a lot about it doesn't matter whether you come from a family that has hardly any money or a family that has a lot of money. Like, money is not the determination of who you are. Really, who you are is what you give back to people. And so we try, and I wholeheartedly believe in this, and in that we try to teach people to treat each other how you'd want to be treated. Obviously, I mean, that's so cliche, but what does that really look like? And that looks like adding value to everyone, and trying to have students and people feel like no matter what you do, no matter what your role, it adds value to all of us. And it doesn't matter what your background is, you have value. And so how can we get you to believe that you have that value, and then also to get other people to believe that you're not a victim of your circumstance, that you can be someone bigger than yourself.
Gosh, I love that. And that led you into, teaching special populations at early in your career, right? That's how you got into education.
I did. I actually started off as a computer science major because I had that chip on my shoulder about not being smart. And I was like, I'll show you. I am smart. I can take calculus and program computers and do all that stuff. And I did that for 1 year and realized I don't like doing that. Like, I can do it, I just don't want to do it. And so I worked at a camp in New York, upstate New York. It's called Camp Jerrod. There's a Netflix special about it. But it's where campers from New York City came up to the Catskills for a week that had special needs. And I was a counselor there, and I worked there all summer. So when I went back to college, I was like, I need to find a career in this area. Like, this fills me. And so I became a special education teacher, and figured I can help. If the earlier I can intervene and help students with disabilities believe that they can do more than what they can do, the better off our society will be. So I became a teacher and worked on vocational skills and reading skills and all different kinds of skills with students.
Now, how long have you been doing the education realm? And obviously you're an administrator now, but how many years has it been?
Yeah, 29.
Oh my goodness. So your life now has been education.
Yeah, most of my life has been Rocky Mountain High School. Yep.
Unbelievable. And what if when you look back on your career, is there a story or a moment or a relationship with a person that stands out to you? They're like, okay, this was the time where I knew what I was doing was making a difference.
I think there's several along the way. I think even we just shared an email about a couple years ago with a student that we helped out together when you were an SRO here. But I think, gosh, there's so many defining moments. I remember, like, I had a student that wanted to go to Front Range and take a vet tech class, and I was told, oh, they'll never make it. And I was like, just let them try. Just let them try. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we will never know unless we try. And so luckily the professor at Front Range was willing to let the student at least try the class. And it ended up, the student is still a vet tech in our community. And so I just thank them for giving us the opportunity and willing to take the risk for us to do that. That's when I was like, okay, I was meant to be here so I can advocate for my students to be able to do more, like I said. Yeah. That's one. I think watching, I had 2 students that had the diagnosis of Down syndrome. They got married. That meant a lot to me that they found each other.
Yeah.
I've had students go to there's a college down in New Mexico that offers certification programs for students with disabilities that have cognitive disabilities. And I've had a couple students graduate from there. That was fulfilling. So I don't know if I have one defining moment. It's just all these little successes along the way that just show you how much being an advocate for people really matters.
Yeah. And that's, And I love that you look for opportunities to create impact. I think too many times we sit back and we think that somebody's always going to come to us that we can help, instead of actively soliciting an opportunity to impact their lives and to share a little bit of our story with them to help them find their
Mm,
story.
yeah. Yeah, I think, no, the students that I worked with, and I work with all students now, but back then the students I worked with, the cognitive disabilities, just taught me so much about perseverance, taught me so much about acceptance and community, and really unconditional love. And I mean, the students I worked with loved everyone. It didn't matter who you were, where you came from, they just loved everyone. And so they just taught me so much about that.
Yeah, and that's amazing, right? We go into teaching or leading people at any level, and at times you find out that you're the one actually being taught,
That's right.
right? And you're learning
100%.
more than I always tell students that, anybody I get to coach, whatever, I say, I'm always going to learn more from you than I give. I'll give you everything I got, but I guarantee you're going to teach me something.
That's right. All the time.
Yeah, and that's such a good mentality. Now you gotten into running. You're an avid runner.
Mm-hmm.
What brought that on, and how did you find that you had a passion for running?
Okay, so I'd like to say my passion for running started in a healthy way, but it really didn't. So at all. I started running. There's two things that stand out. One, my sister started running and she completed a half marathon, and I was like, oh my gosh, if she can do it, I can do it. And so one, I started because I wanted to prove that I could do something she could do. And then the other was at Rocky, we used to do a triathlon, and a mini triathlon. And so there were two other assistant principals here that were like, hey, let's form a team. Karen, you could do the running part. And I'm like, I'm not a great runner. And so if you want to win, you probably don't want me on the team. And they're like, oh, no, it's fine. We'll just do this. So one of them did the swimming, one did the biking, and I did the running. And I came into second to last place. And the only person that beat me in the running was a mom of one of the teachers here who was like 70 at the time. And I was like, that cannot happen. Like, I can be better than that. So I started running to do better in the next year's triathlon, which ended up getting canceled. But then I found out I actually really enjoy running.
You do. You enjoy, and you're putting in a ton of miles.
Yeah. I'm training for a marathon right now. So it's a lot of miles and very humbling.
And now I believe you've gotten your husband into it as well.
Yeah, he started about 2019.
Yeah, because he wasn't running much when I was working with you and I knew him.
No, he wasn't running at all. No, we actually we signed up for the Firecracker 5K. It was him, me, and my son, Andrew. And so I beat both of them in the race. And Dean did it. Yeah, that was in 2019. And Dean did it to support Andrew and his run, because Andrew's not a runner either.
Sure.
And they both were like, they finished in like 35 minutes or something like that. And we're like, okay, this is not kind of that competitive mentality again. Like, this is not worth it. And they actually liked it too. So from that point on, Dean he's been into the running world.
Okay. And that kind of coincided with him leaving law enforcement as well, right? It was around that same time.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he left law enforcement during COVID in 2020.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now has Drew stuck with running? Because I know he was an offensive lineman back in the day. So not necessarily his wheelhouse.
No, let's just say he's enjoying coaching offensive linemen at 7th middle school now.
And I know you gotta be the part, so he probably gets to look like a lineman a little more too, right? Is that
Yep.
non-runner?
Yep.
Good for him.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
did that do? What did that do, if you don't mind me prying a little bit, what did that
Mhm.
do for your guys' relationship? Because you've been married quite a while before you
Yeah.
running as a couple. What did that do for you two?
It gave us something that we both could do together. And, Dean worked in Broomfield, which is about an hour away from Fort Collins. And as a police officer, and as you know, your schedule is just wonky. It's all over the place. And then with me working at a high school, my schedule's all over the place. Um, Sometimes doing 16-hour days as well. So it gave us that time to connect and do something that we both love, and then form a friend group that also has that same passion. And it's also allowed us to travel to some really cool places, because now we're really into destination races. So it just gave us something, especially, Andrew, when he went to college, and then Maddie, when she went to college. We just needed something for both of us.
I
And that
love
was
that.
kind of our common ground. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking with someone, um, I don't know, a week or so ago about Andrew and I just had our 23rd anniversary a week ago. And
Congratulations.
oh, thanks. Yeah. And people were like, how do you guys do? Like, how do you stay on the same page? And it's literally the same thing as you and Dean. Like, we find stuff that challenges both, that we can both grow together, that one of us doesn't have way more experience than the other. And we get to
Yeah.
live new again, right? Like, we get to discover and be useful again.
Yep. Yep. 100%. I mean, you have to have, and this, you hear this, people say this all the time, that when your kids leave and go off to college, you have to have something that brings you back together. And because your kids are what keep you together for the longest time. And so, lucky for me, I have Dean, who's he's just amazing. And so he was willing to give this a go, and have it be something that we could both do together. And, we still have our separate things. He still likes to, teach shooting at the range on the weekends, and do different stuff like that. And I still have my things I like to do, but I believe you have to have something you like to do together.
Yeah, I agree. You have to have something you're growing towards together.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
the other benefit of this is, as we age, you guys are taking your health into your own hands. So you're
Mhm.
giving your body a fighting chance, and hopefully creating longevity in life, and in quality life, not just living, but living where you can do the things you want to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know this from being in law enforcement, that when you're a police officer, your levels are always on alert and
Yeah.
so high, and your adrenaline levels are different than everyone else's adrenaline level. Like, where your baseline is where my high is, and that's not good on the heart or the body. And so for Dean, he recognized that too, like where he was at, and just realized he had to find something to bring that level down, right? Like, still get an adrenaline rush, but have it be a healthy rush,
Yeah.
and not have it be like the constant vigilance.
Oh, it's so funny you say that, because I remember, at least what I felt was one of my roles when we were working together was to remind Mr. Lopez that a lot of things that got him excited weren't really emergencies.
Yes, right.
I
Yep,
loved it, but I have to be like, hey, Mr. Lopez, this really is an emergency. Like, we could breathe here.
right.
Big,
Yeah.
deep breath. But you're absolutely right. And how's that process been for Dean? So he's been out of law enforcement for a little over 2 years now.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, he still works for the city and county of Broomfield. He works in the manager's office.
Right.
But he just is so much calmer, and it's just been really awesome to see him take care of himself. Again, when you're in the role of a police officer, your hours are so different. You're carrying that heavy belt, you're carrying a lot with you. You see a lot that people don't understand, that you see, that weighs on you. And so now he's slow, he sleeps better at night. He's calmer. Like, it's just, I wouldn't say he's a different person altogether. But he is.
Sure. Yeah,
You know,
and when I talk with people, and they're always like, "What's your favorite thing to get told on the road as we travel?" And I tell them one of the things that I know I'm doing well is when people tell me like, "I never would have guessed you were a police officer."
yeah, yep,
Just because it is such an identity and such a weight you carry, it's
yep,
it's nice to be able to totally decompress and move past it.
yep. Yeah, move on, move on. I think the first year, and I don't know if you experienced this, it was a little hard. I mean, he
Sure.
felt he was missing the locker room, he's missing his team, right?
Yeah.
And but I think now he's good. Like he's moved past that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's that growth that comes from moving on from a career and not stagnating yourself to where you have to stay at the same place.
Right. Yep.
So let's talk about your upcoming London Marathon and raising money for children with
Yeah.
cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, I mean, I'm honored to be able to run London for one, because that's my roots, right? Like that's where my mom's from. That's where all my aunts and uncles live, my cousins and their kids. And so to be able to go back there and run the London Marathon is such an honor. And then to be able to run it for Children with Cancer UK is even more of an honor. And um, I went with that charity because at Rocky, I'd say over the last 10 years, we've had so many students diagnosed with some form of cancer. One year we had 5 students alone diagnosed with a form of cancer. And I just want to be able to help provide and run for research so that we can figure out how do we help our kids not ever have to suffer through cancer, and what does that look like. And I know the money is going to Children with Cancer UK and not somewhere in the US, but to me that doesn't matter. What matters is we find a cure and we continue to research and provide money into research so that no kid has to suffer.
Oh, I love it. Who is going to be going over to watch you run?
Dean's coming. My mom is going to come over, and my sister.
Oh, I
Yeah,
was wondering if your mom was gone.
yeah, she's going to go. We're all my auntie and my mom and my sister and one of my cousins and Dean and I will be in London for the weekend. They'll watch me race, and some of my other cousins are going to take the train in for the day to be
Oh,
there. Yeah,
fantastic. How long are you going to be over there?
for 10 days.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. One day of
Mhm.
racing and then some recovery days. You're going to have to go hit a pub or two,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We have quite the agenda. It's going to go by super quick. We're going to go to an ABBA show and like see a remake of ABBA and like all the girls, all the girl cousins.
Okay. Dean's
We're going to
sitting that one
go.
out.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, the guys are doing their thing. I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, they're babysitting the kids.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah, no, we got that on the agenda. We're gonna go down to the Isle of Wight, which was one of my grandmother. I call her Nanny. One of her favorite places to go. My uncle lives down there, so we're gonna get to go down there for a couple days. We're gonna go see Team USA play Team Great Britain, or Team England, I should say, not Great Britain, in soccer.
Oh, on
So
the
we got
old
tickets to
pitch. You're
that.
going to go to the pitch.
Yeah, we're gonna go to
Uh,
Wembley.
oh, man, that's going to be an epic trip.
Yeah, I know. Like I
And
said,
then
it's gonna go by so fast.
you'll squeeze in a short run of 26.2 miles somewhere in there.
That's right. Yep, over Tower Bridge and ending at Buckingham Palace. Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see how the vibe will be with the Queen just passing.
Oh, I gotta tell you, I hardly ever watch those. That is breaking news to me. I did not know the Queen passed.
Oh, yeah, she passed away last week.
Oh
Mhm.
gosh. Yeah, I get.
Yeah.
Well, you will be happy to know I just ordered Starlink so that Andrew and I can stay a little more connected in our travels. But sometimes I do feel like I'm out of the loop.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's
So
been,
now, do you call your mom or mum?
I call her mom.
Okay.
Yeah, all my relatives call their moms mom,
Yep.
but I'd say we're probably more Americanized than we
Sure.
are British. So yeah,
Very cool. Now, are you dual citizen or just American citizen?
I am not. No, I'm
How
just American citizen. I was born in the States.
how about your mom?
My mom's just British. Yeah,
Okay.
she hasn't changed her. Doesn't have dual citizenship. Mhm.
All right. So what is your goal for this marathon? Obviously, we're raising money and we're bringing awareness to
Yeah.
child cancer. What's your personal goal? What's going to be going through your head as you go step after step for those 26 miles?
My personal goal is one, I want to try and run it in 4.5 hours. Um, we'll see, because I have a little bit of an injury going on right now. So, but I think if I just relax the next couple weeks, I'll be able to do it. My other goal is, again, training for a marathon is so humbling. There's so many things you have to figure out. Um, like your shoes and your nutrition and how much water should you drink versus how much electrolytes. And in every training run, you're learning something new about your body and what it can do, and its limitations, and how do you overcome those limitations. And so I know like the wrong answer is probably just finish, but the right answer for me is just finish and feel good.
For sure.
That is my goal.
No, I think that's awesome. And what would you say has been your biggest personal discovery in your training from when you started
Yeah.
to where you are now? What's something that you discovered it within yourself that you didn't know?
Um, I think some of the things for sure, one of the biggest things is when I don't want to do it, I can.
Oh,
And
yes.
when I don't think I can do it, I can.
Big
And
lesson.
so, yeah, every time I run a race at a distance, you know, let's say like a 5K, which is 3.1 miles, I never thought I could beat my PR. And I've been able to beat my PR. And so that just that's rewarding in itself. And then a 10K, and then to do the half marathon and beat my PR there. A half marathon, I thought, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to beat that PR. That everything was so perfect that day. And then when it's on not a great day, that feels good.
Yeah.
Especially as you get older, because being 51, I started running when I was like 43, which is kind of old in the running world, but
Sure.
to be able to get faster and beat your time, that's been rewarding.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, what
Mhm.
a good story. And I love that you said even when you don't feel like it or you don't feel your best, you can still do it, because I think so many of us only want to do things on those perfect days where, like you said, everything aligns. And
Mhm.
and we really grow the most on the days we absolutely don't want to do it and we do it anyhow.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, because believe me, in marathon training, there's lots of times when you're like, I just don't want to go. I'm tired, my body's tired, but you get up and you do it anyway. And it also helps to have a great group of friends to run with, which I
Sure.
do.
I
Mhm.
love it. All right. So then after we're gonna run and you're gonna finish up the year and then you're gonna retire and move away from public education.
Yes,
What
yes, I know.
what do you got planned after education career? What do you want to do?
I've been volunteering at a couple of nonprofits right now, trying to figure out if that's the route I want to go. I'm working with United Way through the Women Give program, which is a program that helps young moms go back to school and get their degrees. They provide childcare and so can provide some tuition assistance for young moms. So I just started this year with that. I love it. And so I'm thinking I might have a bigger role in that in the future. I'm also, I did a short-term job at a clothing store called Athleta, and met some young girls there, and they have started a foundation called the Jet Foundation, and it's working with families to do mini campaigns to raise money for cancer treatment. So our last campaign was, we worked with a young mom who had breast cancer. And we did some fundraising events for her, and we're able to raise some money to help her towards her cancer journey, which, you say journey and you think great things, but it's not in the cancer world. So I've been volunteering with them, helping them out with some public speaking and fundraisers. So I'm hoping to get a little more involved with that foundation. And that was actually started by one of the young ladies at Athleta whose dad passed away from cancer, and she felt like she needed to do something to get back. So she started this nonprofit. So I'm hoping to help a little more with that. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, obviously I seek towards the helping mode. So I'm sure it's going to be, whether it's being more involved in the running world and helping, maybe older runners get into running like I was. I just don't know. I just know I want to continue to give back to the community somehow.
Man, and I heard in all those stories, the theme for this whole episode is you will still be cheering on the underdog and helping them find that fight within them.
I hope so.
No
Yeah,
doubt you will, Karen.
Yeah, the underdog they need people to believe in them. And sometimes they just don't get that,
For sure. Well, I will tell you, you are a blessing to many. You impacted me greatly getting to work with you. You were a fundamental piece that allowed me to start that transition from seeing everything as a police officer who was working the streets to being able to look at the young people we were able to work with as a long-term project, and that I could invest day after day and eventually create change. I didn't have to try to force it right at that moment. And
Yeah.
I want to thank you for sharing your time and your philosophy with me back then, and really encourage you to continue on the path you are, because you are generally making a difference to many in the world.
Well, thank you. I try every day. As we know, the biggest thing is, one, you have to show up. And then once you show up, you have to do something.
Absolutely.
And it really is 90% of the battle is showing up, 10% is the action. And then once you get that action going, the showing up becomes easier. So that's what I try to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for showing up for our community this week, Karen. It's been an honor to share your story, and best of luck at the London Marathon and raising money for Children with Cancer UK.
Thank you, Jerrod, for having me. And you're a blessing to all of us. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.